Hey friends, Sleepy here, and welcome to another episode of the Weekly Playlist. It's Friday, so it's time to share with you the different games I have been playing this week. This week I have just 3 games to share with you, as one of them I've been spending the most time playing since I picked it up last week. Been having an absolute blast with it. I would like to hear your guys' thoughts on the games I share with you today. I'd also like to hear what games you guys have been playing. Let me know what games you guys have been playing during the week. And if you have any suggestions for any games you think I should try out, let me know. You guys always recommend really cool titles. We'll start off here with the first game for the Nintendo 64. Mentioned this one many times. My buddy Grant came over and we continued our work on Donkey Kong 64. Which this is one of my favorite games for the Nintendo 64, and it's becoming one of my top 3 favorite games now for the Nintendo 64 since I've been playing it so much. He comes over on Mondays whenever he gets a chance to, and we have our retro gaming night. We have beat the other Donkey Kong games. We beat Donkey Kong Country 1, 2, and 3 for the Super Famicom, and now we're working on beating Donkey Kong 64, which I want to 100% beat this game. I never have beat it actually ever. As a kid, I would get so far into the game and then I would stop playing it. And then I'd start it over again and then stop and then get back into it again. And I wanted to finally beat it, and that was one of my goals for this year. Unfortunately, it does not look like we'll be able to beat it this year. But that's alright because we have been making really good progress. We earned quite a few of the golden bananas on Monday. We now have 159 of 200 gold bananas, so that's awesome. Really fun game. I definitely think you guys should try out if you have a Nintendo 64. It's the only 3D adventure Donkey Kong game that was ever released. The Donkey Kong Country started out the 2D side-scrolling platform adventure, and then they came out with Donkey Kong 64 because at the 64 time, Nintendo really wanted to push 3D gaming, and so that's why they made this one. And it was really cool, but I was really sad that they never released a sequel to this or another one like this, because when they did revive the Donkey Kong Country series on the Wii and the Wii U with the Donkey Kong Country Returns, it went back to the 2D side-scrolling, and then Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze for the Wii U also went back to the 2D side-scrolling adventure platformer, which both of those games are awesome, but I really would have loved to have seen another third adventure game like this. And there are some characters in this game that are never in any other Donkey Kong games, like the Tiny Kong, Chunky Kong, and my favorite, Lanky Kong in this game, which is really awesome because, you have 5 different Kongs, and they all have different powers, and they all control differently. You have Donkey Kong is your standard, regular character who's pretty strong, but a little slow. Then you have Diddy Kong, who's really fast, but he's not as powerful, has his tail, the little attack he can do. He also can get a jetpack, which is awesome. Tiny Kong is the smallest of the Kongs, but she has a little hair twirl that she can do, so she can float with her hair, kind of like how Dixie Kong did. And then you have Chunky Kong, who is the really big, strong brute of the group, and he's the slowest of all, but he also has the most powerful attacks. It can get really huge and punch guys and stuff. So really fun, nice, diverse levels, and there's all kinds of Easter eggs and stuff hidden in this game. And one of the ones that we were playing is they actually have the original Donkey Kong arcade game from the 80s in this, and you have to beat the first 4 levels in that, and we played that for about 45 minutes, and for the first half hour, I'd say him and I had trouble beating just the first board, the first level of the original Donkey Kong in the arcade. Just kept dying, because you only get 1 life, and, I used to be really good at that game when I was a kid. I used to love playing through it, and after a while, the first stage was easy, and the second stage was really easy with the little pie ones, but the third stage is the one we just could not get past, where you have to go up the little elevators, go up and down, and we kept falling. And if you fall just a little distance, Mario ends up dying because of the little fall damage, which is really annoying. And it's also, I think, too, with, the controls on the 64, the little control stick doesn't always control too well, and sometimes, you move it just slightly, and it moves Mario, and he ends up dying. So it kind of sucks, but it was really fun playing that old game, and I forgot that old little game was in there until we started playing it this year, and it was really fun. Has a great story too, and there's a lot to do. There's a lot of collectibles for every Kong and all the worlds. You know, if you want to go for all the golden bananas, they have little battle arenas you have to go through, defeat all the enemies. Tons of interesting little mini games, and it is an overall really fun adventure. It just can be challenging at times because of the camera angles, and that's just its biggest flaw. Is sometimes the camera angle and your depth perception. You can't tell exactly where the Kong is in relation to an enemy or an item you're trying to get when it has a fixed camera. You know, it can be really tough, but definitely suggest you guys give it a try if you've never played Donkey Kong 64. Such a fantastic game. Really fun. I absolutely love it for the 64. Also been continuing my adventure on Titan Quest. I've talked about this one many times this year. This is a wonderful isometric top-down action RPG. Plays similar to the Baldur's Gate, Dark Alliance, your Dungeons & Dragons, Heroes, Diablo type game. This was an old 2006 PC game that they did port to the Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and Nintendo Switch last year. Now, when this originally launched, it did not have couch co-op, but they have since then released an update, and that added couch co-op, but you can also play this online with up to 6 people total, which would be really cool to go through the adventure. And I've only ever played it with 2 people when my buddy Jeff comes over, and we play this together, and it's a really fun game. There's a nice variety of enemies, and I really like the layout of everything. I like the control with the camera because you can have it set at different settings. You can have it pulled way back, so you're way up to the top, looking down and the characters look kind of small, or you can zoom all the way down into your character if you want, and you have different settings throughout, which I really enjoy, because some of the games like this, you know, they only have a couple camera settings, and, you know, everybody likes to play a different depth for that, and I like the control that this game has as far as the camera goes. The characters are really cool. I also like the theme and the setting. You know, this is set in ancient Greece. The Titans have escaped. They're battling the gods, and they need a hero to defeat them, and that's where your character comes in. And, you know, you start off through the story, go through the adventure, but you also, after Greece, you get to go to Egypt, you get to go through there, and then finally get to go through Asia and do all that stuff, which is really cool, because each area has unique music and has unique enemies to that territory, which is really cool, and it's a pretty big story. And I definitely think you guys should try it out, especially if you're a fan of the isometric top-down action RPGs. It's great. There's a huge variety of characters that you can create, and you can do hybrids. You know, you can do all kinds of different things. I like to play as a mage. Wizards, you know, those are my favorites, so I'm a ranged character. And I also use pets that I conjure up because they help me out tremendously. So I have one who's an undead lich, and I also have one who's a molten rock golem who has fire attacks and stuff. And so he does great for melee damage, and the lich does great for ranged attacks with me. And both of them really help, and I really like it. They have different masteries that you unlock after you level up to like level 5. And that's where you can have different elements and different things. Like you can have earth powers or fire powers or undead powers like I have. Ice powers, stuff like that. And so you can choose up to 2 masteries, and then you can add points into that with your skills that you unlock as you level up. And, you know, you can create a character you really want and fine-tail it that way and play the game how you like. And it can get difficult at times. Overall, it's a fairly, you know, medium difficulty for a game, but there are some enemies in the game that can get really difficult. But it's really fun, and I think you guys should try it out. Such a wonderful game here, Titan Quest. You can get it for about $10 now used on eBay, and you can buy it digitally, which I'm not sure how cheap it is online. Digitally, it was originally released at $30, but I do recommend picking up a copy and trying it out if you're into top-down action RPGs, because you will not be disappointed. Such a wonderful game, and I'm really having a blast playing it. Next game here is the one I've been sinking the most time in, and that is Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order for the Xbox One. This is also released on the PS4 and the PC, of course. I got this at GameStop. They had that 9 o'clock launch on Thursday, and, you know, I wasn't completely sure how well the game was going to be. You know, I was, you know, because you did have EA involved with it, and, you know, I was worried that, you know, they were going to screw it up with microtransactions or something like that, and I was pleasantly surprised that they did not ruin the game like that. This has a wonderful story. You play as a young Jedi Padawan Cal who has been trying to hide from the Empire after Order 66 was issued, where the Jedi Purge, trying to kill all the Jedi, and you were able to slip through the cracks. You're on start off in a mining planet, and then the Empire ends up finding you, and you continue your adventure from there. And man, this game is done really well. The graphics are really good. Now, I heard some people in the reviews were complaining, like, oh, the graphics are like PS1 graphics. Now, I've been playing it with just a regular Xbox One with my 1080p TV, and the game looks amazing. And it does support the HDR, and if you were playing on the Xbox One X, it would look even better. So I don't know what the complaints about the graphics were. I played it, and it looks beautiful. It looks amazing. The lightsabers, lightning powers, I mean, everything just looks great. The enemies look wonderful. The environments are huge. The snow, there's deserts, like everything, you know, it just looks really good. There's a lot of detail in the environment. So I don't know what people's complaints about the graphics were. I mean, they look great to me. So, you know, definitely don't listen to people complain about the graphics, because they do look awesome. Now, as far as the way this game plays, is I'd have to compare it to, which other people have, to like a Dark Souls, Demon Souls type of a game. As far as some of the mechanics go, that this is not just a simple hack and slash game where you grab your lightsaber and just go crazy beating up enemies, because that's how you're going to get killed, because they will counter you, they will block, and they will parry you, and you'll die really fast. So, you know, if you're, a lot of people, you know, loved playing the Star Wars Force Unleashed games, and thought this was going to be similar to that, and it is a different game than that. This is not another Star Wars Force Unleashed where you're a super Jedi with superpowers and bone through 20, 30 guys like that. That's just not how this game is, because the main character is not a Jedi Master. He is a Padawan who is hiding, so he never reached or obtained that Master level. So, and he's also has an issue with the Force. And so that makes him, as you know, as like a flawed character, which is really cool, because he's not a perfect super killing machine, which I like. You know, you have to actually play well in order to win, and you have to think sometimes, and you have to take your time, and you have to learn how to block. You have to learn how to parry, perfect timing, and not just mash a bunch of buttons and think you're gonna win, because that's not how it is. So it is similar to like that in how Dark Souls plays, where, you know, the enemies are tough, and, you know, you have to learn their patterns, and you have to learn how to fight properly in order to survive. There's also little meditation points throughout the world, and that is where, when you meditate, you can level up your character. You can also save, and every time you hit rest and you save, it'll restart the world like in Dark Souls. So all the enemies will respawn, your health will respawn, and you have 2 health stim packs that you get, and those respawn, and then all the enemies are back there again, and you can go through and you have to kill the enemies again. And just like in Dark Souls, you know, the enemies will respawn, and you can keep killing them and leveling up. But after you kill the enemies so many times, you know, you get less and less XP from the enemies. So you can't, you know, just sit there and grind forever to level up your character. So you'll have to keep moving on through the story. Once you beat through the first initial opening world, which was just it was amazing. Like, it was just awesome. Like, the scale, you got to see really cool stuff from the end of Episode 3. So from the Clone Wars, because this game takes place from Star Wars 3 to New Hope for Star Wars 4. This takes place in between there, so at the end of the Clone Wars, you know, the Empire's taking over. And it's really cool. You get to see the old, I can't think of the names of those ships now, for the Republic, the old Republic giant ships that the clones used, and their little vehicles and stuff. Like, you get to see those in the distance in the game, and it's really cool running into that. Sometimes you run into old dead clone troopers and stuff from that Clone War, so that was really cool and neat to see. And then just sometimes, you know, the environments are just huge. In the draw distance, you can see huge things going on in the backgrounds, and it's awesome. So once you beat that initial thing, you go to another planet, and you beat that planet. then you can start exploring other planets where you have the ship and you can go to either one. And all of these planets are pretty big, and they have a lot of stuff to explore, a lot of secrets to find. There are little collectibles. There are little things like called Force Echo, where you can sense things in the Force, and you can learn information. And those are spread out throughout the different worlds. And then you also can unlock different Jedi powers as you progress through the story. So not everything is accessible right at the beginning of the game when you go to a certain planet. You know, you might have to go back and revisit later when you've learned a new power and new moves. You can get into new areas. And I have been having a blast. Been playing this a few hours every day. Now, people have said that it's like a 12 to 16 hour campaign. For me, I definitely been getting a lot more than that, just because I like to explore and go through stuff and really just, you know, get lost in the world. And it's just awesome. It's like, this is one of the best Star Wars games I have played since Knights of the Old Republic. Like, this is the kind of Star Wars game I was looking for, a single player one. You know, I mean, I love, you know, the Rogue Squadron and ship battling games and all that. But, you know, there's more to Star Wars than just ships fighting each other. And I always wanted another great single-player Star Wars game, and I never thought we would ever get another one. And I'm so happy that we did here with Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. But I just did want to warn some people, though, that, you know, that it can be difficult because it plays like a Dark Souls game where enemies do respawn, and they are a lot tougher, and it's not just simple button mashing, because that is what you'll get you killed. You know, you have to learn how to block properly. Like, there's stormtroopers that have blasters. Like, you have to learn when to block so you can deflect their blaster back at them and stuff like that. And then there's ones when they have batons. You know, you have to learn how to deflect that. And then there's other enemies in the game that are really difficult. There's creatures in the game that are really strong. Now, there was one complaint. People were upset that you can't dismember human enemies, which it doesn't. They just go down and have like a laser strike. But you can cut off the arms and heads and cut animals and creatures in half and droids and stuff. But they did not allow it for people, because if they did, they'd have to give it that M rating, and they couldn't do the teen rating they did. So, you know, it's all right. You know, I'm okay with it not decapitating people. It would have been more realistic and been if it was really bloody and stuff like that. But it's okay. I understand why they didn't. It's still a really enjoyable game. It also does have some aspects of like an Uncharted game where he can run along walls and jump to different platforms and stuff, and it's really cool. So you do have that aspect in the game too, an adventure, and it's really good. And the story too is done really well. The voice acting is amazing, the music is great, and it just really feels like an old Star Wars film, because, you know, some of the new I really like the original classic Star Wars movies. I like the original trilogy. The prequels I even really enjoyed. I did watch the Star Wars 7, The Force Awakens. That was okay. It just, you know, it's just... So, definitely interesting game, but I think you guys should try out Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. It is an amazing Star Wars game. Just know, though, that it is not like the Force Unleashed games. It is placed similar like a Dark Souls game, and you do have to actually think how you go through the game and play it. And there are puzzles and stuff, and it is a wonderful title. I think you guys should try out. So let me know your guys' thoughts. You know, we talked about Donkey Kong 64, a wonderful 3D adventure Donkey Kong game for the Nintendo 64 that I think you guys should try out. It is a wonderful game. It has a little issue with camera angles, but it is awesome. We talked about Titan Quest, which is a great isometric top-down action RPG to play similar to Baldur's Gate, Dark Alliance type games. So if you're a fan of those, give this one a try. It's a very cheap game, only $10. You can also get it digitally. Wonderful game. I think you guys should try out. And definitely, I think you guys should try out Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. It's the best Star Wars game I have played since Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. Wonderful single-player game, no multiplayer at all. And it is the kind of game that we've needed from Star Wars and forever. So let me know your guys' thoughts on these 3 games. I also love to hear the games you guys have been playing. And if you have any suggestions on games you think I should try out, let me know, because you guys always suggest really fun titles. Take care, have a wonderful day, and Sleepy will see you next time.